Dubai. Okay. Yeah, for those joining us for the first time, there is a way we do these sessions. And this is especially for those of you who are in a rush. We have to start with the meditation. Cannot jump into any activity because anything that we do doesn't happen the way it is supposed to happen unless our intention is in the right place. Unless the person who has the intention is also in the right place. And the right place is always here and now. So wherever you are sitting, allow yourself to feel what you're bringing to this moment. A lot of us come to these events with a great deal of eagerness, urgency, enthusiasm, rush. And it turns into the continuation of the same problems, the same kind of mindset, the same way of being, which leads us to ask these questions in the first place. So we try to break this pattern immediately. The more I want to rush, the more I ask myself, is it possible to slow down? The more expectations I find myself having about the various challenges which are currently present in my life, the more expectations I have of them, I ask myself, is it possible to gently put those expectations down? Most of these happen to be stemming from the desire to change people, even the desire to change myself. And we are asking if I can put even those expectations down. And then we ask ourselves, what else is going on in my mind? What fear am I operating, living under? What desires, what pursuits am I continuously chasing? Because right from the moment that I have woken up this morning, there is a movement underway. My mind and my body are trying to achieve something or trying to escape something. And that same movement away or towards something we are identifying and asking if we can bring it to a slow and perhaps to a complete halt. What am I trying? What am I trying to achieve? What am I trying to prevent? And can I stop trying? At the deepest levels of my being, physical, emotional, psychological, or spiritual, can I stop all trying? Because if we can stop trying, then we begin to realize that instead of things falling apart, things going sideways, my life actually begins to work out because my energy returns to me. In that space of quietness where I stop struggling, all things return to harmony. And from this place, we can begin. We can get into anything that we want, ask any question that we want, and the answer is not something we have to grasp at because we are in a position where even if we do not find an answer, it is okay. So, having said that, I'm going to press the record button. But we can begin here. So all of you are here. Some of you have been joining these sessions for a while now. And I just wanted to have this space to reach out to the community and firstly thank all of you for your time and for your presence. And see what's going on in your lives. Find out what challenges are you struggling with. Because everybody is struggling with something. All of us have various things which we are battling in our careers, in our relationships. And sometimes our careers are behind us. We have retired from work life. Our relationships are working fine, but we are in our 50s or 60s and we have raised our children and sent them away. But now we don't know what to do with our lives. And so all of these various places we find ourselves in, the question remains, where do I go from here? This is not something that goes away with time. Perhaps the question becomes more and more important with time. What is my purpose? Why am I here? What am I supposed to do with all these 70, 80 years that have been given to me? We consider human life to be short on the cosmic time scale. But actually, human life is really long. 70, 80 years, maybe first 15, 20 years. We are children. They don't count. But there's still 65, 70 years to figure out. So we have time. There is no need to rush. And we can think carefully from here on out, wherever I find myself. and maybe perhaps design a life, shape a life which brings me and others around me happiness, joy, satisfaction, fulfillment. I hope those things are still valuable. So, what questions do you have? This is the time to ask questions. Today, I'm not going to talk much because every one of these sessions, I talk for an hour. And then some of you, I'm sure, are waiting to get to questions. So today is a chance to ask questions. I'll pick them not necessarily in the order they are asked, but in the order that my intuition says they should be answered. So I'm giving you a fair warning there. So go for it. What questions do you have? You have a chat on Zoom and you also have chat on YouTube. What brings you here? What's going on? We'll wait for a while. Hey, Shrija, go for it.
Hi, Amit. Hi, everyone.
Hmm.
So my the question that's like lingering in my head for like a couple of months now
Mhm.
is about self-judgment.
Mhm.
And I caught myself, doing this a lot,
Mhm.
in the sense it's like sometimes I catch myself doing it from minute to minute. So this voice of a judge in my mind
Right.
is getting louder and louder. So it's sometimes like if I'm just sitting on the desk for a meeting, like I'm judging myself for the way I'm sitting. I'm judging myself for like each and everything um, about the food that I eat, about the way I drive the car, about the way I write, my handwriting, like everything
Mhm.
is being like highly critical about myself. And I'm not sure how to figure out how to get out of that loop.
Right. So we have to understand, where does self-judgment come from? Who taught us how to judge ourselves? We feel like the judgment is our original voice. That is, this is my ascertaining who I am. But generally speaking, the judgment is an internalized voice. An internalized voice from whom? From the people around us, from the people in our lives who have had significant presence in our lives, significant importance in our lives. Generally happens to be parents. Sometimes it is uncles and aunts and cousins and brothers and sisters. Or sometimes it is the pressure from society looking at me constantly and expecting things of me and looking at my life and criticizing it. And when I'm criticized, I begin to internalize that voice and I begin to trust that whatever they are saying is true. Generally speaking, we have been taught right from the beginning not to trust our own voice. We have been taught right from the beginning to trust the voice of the people who are giving us advice, which is why a lot of times when people come to these sessions, I always tell them, I don't want your trust. I couldn't care less for your trust. I'm sorry. And I don't want your trust. I want your doubt. Doubting is very important. We must learn to doubt others. And in the process of doubting, when the doubt is correct, not endlessly doubting, but having self awareness when we doubt others, we naturally come to respect the things which are true and discard the things which are false. But otherwise, I begin to conform to society. I begin to be totally molded by society. And in spite of everything being generally great in my life, I begin to criticize it. Small things. Oh, this is not working. Now, maybe my relationships are not working. And so I criticize myself by picking and choosing relationships as a means to criticize myself because I've been habituated to criticize myself, habituated to say negative things about myself. But that's not necessary. When I doubt others, I actually begin to look at my life for what it is. And when I begin to look at my life for what it is, I begin to see my life is beautiful. My internal experience is not what people are trying to make it out to be. I have enough for myself, I have enough for my family, and I have enough creative avenues where I can do the things that I love doing. I have my work and I have this or I have that. And even my present moment is full of silence, peace, and joy. And that becomes enough. This is a habit. And with training, we can break this habit. Constantly talking to ourselves in the way, here's the thing. Most of us say negative things about us without reason, without question. Why not begin to say positive things about us without reason and without questioning? It's the same thing. Just flip it. I believe in myself. I believe in myself. I trust my intuition to guide me. I trust my intuition to guide me. Make these affirmations a daily part of your life and write them every single day. Once you start writing them, every time you have a self-doubt, this affirmation or this idea that you have planted in your mind will speak. It will say, I believe in myself. I believe in, I feel this feels different when somebody's questioning me, when somebody's challenging me. I believe in myself. What do you know? You are wrong. I know because I believe in myself. And you start, if some people have deep internalized fear, trauma, anxiety, put one hand on your chest or the other hand on your chest and give a slight pressure, and you will feel a beautiful connection with yourself. And now you say, I believe in myself. I believe in myself. So you start making it a somatic practice also. The idea goes deeper and deeper and deeper into your psyche until it begins to feel real. Because right now it doesn't feel real. Make sense? So do a lot of affirmations and recognize the internalized voice for what it is and reject it totally. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
There's another question from Nozuko. How do I make sure I don't attract what is colloquially referred to as toxic people? I have done so much work around this, but whenever I realize that I am in the same situation, it makes me feel unsure of the spiritual work I have done on my own self-awareness. It's a very good question. How do I stop attracting toxic people? Because when I do, I feel like I begin to doubt myself. I begin to doubt my process, begin to doubt my own understanding. The thing is, why do we attract toxic people? Or what we call them toxic? Is it that they are actually toxic when we meet them? Or is it that only I discover that they are toxic once I begin to associate with them, once I spend a few months with them, once I get into a relationship with them? I recognize later, don't I? I don't recognize in the moment. Why don't I recognize in the moment? That's the right question. The reason why I don't recognize in the moment is because I like these people. I have affection for these people. I get attached to these people. Then the right question becomes, why do I get attached to these people? I get attached to these people because they appeal to my own particular life experience, my own traumas, my own insecurities, my own fears, in a way that makes sense to me in that moment. When somebody comes to me and says, you are so beautiful, you are so nice, you're so this or so that, it is very conveniently accepted by my brain, by my mind, because that's what I've been looking for, right? When someone says, oh, you had an abusive father, abusive mother, you grew up in a difficult environment, so did I. That's what I want to hear. And so I get attached to them. So when somebody's life experience or somebody's conditioning appeals to my conditioning in a way which feels very comfortable, which feels very attractive in the moment, I get attached to these people. It's not that they are toxic. It's that there is something in them which resonates with unfulfilled, unrecognized, unrevealed parts of me. So the answer to this, knowing exactly what you are, knowing exactly who you are. Because once you know exactly who you are, you will begin to understand what it is that you want in your life. What are your negotiables and what are your non-negotiables? And having those criteria clearly understood and listed. I want somebody who is self-aware. I want someone who respects these practices of meditation, of yoga, whatever it is that you do. I want someone who loves animals, who loves pets. If you have pets in your life, I want someone who respects the outdoors because I spend a lot of time in nature. What are those things that you're looking for? Know these things precisely. Because when you know these things precisely, you'll be able to identify the lack of these things in the people you associate with instantly. Instead of falling back to emotional responses, you will have a basis, a foundation of reason. Make sense? So ask yourself where your traumas are, where your insecurities are, where your fears are, and first resolve them without waiting for somebody else to fulfill you. A man is complete when he recognizes he does not need a woman to complete him. A woman is complete when she recognizes she does not need a man to complete her. And only when two such people come together who are not relying on each other for emotional fulfillment do they give each other that emotional fulfillment. That's the irony of it. That's the state of affairs. So, first, focus on becoming emotionally fully self reliant, and then you will not find yourself in the company of such people. Make sense? Okay. What other questions do we have? Okay, let's look at some questions from YouTube. Is doubting a part of listening? How doubting is different from judging? So we'll look at this question, then we'll look at the other question. How is doubting? Oh, is doubting a part of listening? How is doubting different from judging? Judgment is a preconceived opinion, isn't it? When I judge somebody, I already know what this person is. And I have not even started to listen. I come with a judgment based on my preconceived notions of whatever stereotypes I have internalized in my mind. Or when I look at my partner, when I look at the people in my life, I look at them through an image I have built up about them, which means I have several memories I have of you, of interacting with you. You hurt me last time, you criticized me last time, you said this about my mom, you said this about my father, etc., etc. And all of these memories are looking at you, which is a form of judgment. The image I have about you, which we all do about people in our lives, is a form of preconceived judgment, because of which we do not even begin the process of listening to these people. So, first, I must remove all of that, leave all of that behind. Okay. When I leave all of that behind completely, then I can be totally present with you. Then I can totally focus on the words that are coming out of your mouth. I can totally focus on your body language. And I can treat you with the respect, with the presence that you need to be treated, regardless of who you are. Even if you are a stranger, an acquaintance, somebody I'm buying a coffee from or a newspaper from, I still treat you as somebody I love, I respect. I have total attention to what you're saying. That is listening. Because in that sort of a listening, my past begins to fall away. And a new kind of behavior, which is a behavior based on intuition, begins to enter my life. So that's what listening is. Makes sense? Listening requires you put judging completely aside. And judging is not bad in the first place. What is bad is being stuck on a judgment. But if you have a continuously changing series of judgments, we call that understanding, and which are flexible, which are not intent insisting on one way, but says, okay, as I have new information coming from you, I begin to understand you better and better and better and better. But judgment is necessary. Without judgment, you wouldn't be here, firstly. If you hadn't judged whatever we do in finding awareness in a certain way, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't watch a movie without judging it from the reviews. You wouldn't go to a restaurant to eat anything. Judgment is everywhere. What's a problem is a judgment that never changes. Make sense? So look at some of the questions. How to process the tragedy of losing a loved one? Okay, I know this is a serious question, and we haven't answered this many times. But one of the things which you have to understand is today, actually, we had a death in my family also, not someone who was close to me. But one of the things which we fail to realize about life is that life becomes valuable, life becomes beautiful only because of the characteristic which is built into it, that it fades away. You know, we wouldn't put, we wouldn't give each other fake flowers. Why? They are beautiful because flowers are perishable, and they are beautiful only because they do not last. And so are people. And sometimes these things happen in our lives where people leave us and they leave behind a heavy absence. And instead of feeling the presence, the beauty, the love, the kindness, the things that this person would want us to remember them by, we begin to remember them through the absence we feel, through the void we feel. And so we have to recalibrate. Going through grief is a long process, which we don't have time to get into today, unfortunately. But this is an important question which I want to address. We have to learn to recalibrate our mind, learn to reevaluate how we process grief, and begin to come to a point where instead of feeling the lack of this person, which is undeniably what we are going to feel, we also begin to think of the value and the positivity and the things that we are grateful for, the time that we did get with this person in our lives. And being focused on that begins to create a feeling of a strange understanding that this person is still with us, that they have not left us, that they have become now a part of our energy, which will always operate through us. So when I lost my grandparents, I had this specific feeling that I have never lost them, that they have now somehow become a part of me, and the things that they taught me continue to live on through me, and their influence continues to come into the world through the work I do in my life. So that's how I look at grief. But there are various things which we can do: meditations, community support, all of that is required also. Thank you for your questions. Take a sip of water here and read some more questions which are here. Question on Zoom. When I recognize one of my false beliefs, I don't know what to do with them. How do I deconstruct them? The way to deconstruct a false belief is to identify ways in which the counter of the false belief. For example, if I have a belief that I'm not good enough, I'm not intelligent enough, not smart enough, not capable enough, not deserving of success, I ask myself, what have I done in my life which might prove to me that I am actually capable of all of those things? So you find counter evidence. You find evidence, life experiences, compliments other people have given you, and things which have happened in your life which show you, reveal to you that the opposite might also be true. Although it has not been so frequent, it has also happened. And train your mind to focus more and more on those things. Okay. I won't go through it too much here, but that's the way you begin to question your beliefs. Is this really true? Write down the negative belief and write down the question next to it. Is this really true? Emphasize each part of that question, and you'll realize the belief begins to unravel. Makes sense? How to accept and fully love your body? A lot of us have a certain image we think we should have of our own bodies. And if you look at the influences that have resulted in this, they're generally not our own. Like the first question we looked at, these are internalized ideas. Internalized from where? A child growing up listens to the parents about the way they talk about their own bodies and the way they talk about your body. You're getting fat, don't eat this, don't eat that. You want to look beautiful, you want to look a certain way. And we begin to associate value somehow with the appearance of my body. Beauty has got nothing to do with how the body looks, right? It's one kind of beauty, physical beauty, but most of the beauty on the planet is not physical beauty, not sexual beauty, but Instagram, social media, continuous advertisements we watch on the television. What does sex have to do with selling cars or have to do with music? But look at music videos, they're completely sexualized. Look at advertisements, completely sexualized. What has sex or beauty, physical beauty, has got anything to do with any of those things? They haven't. But human mind has gone towards these things, because of which the way I deal with my body is completely broken. I cannot focus on how I feel more than how I look. I obsess with how I look. And everything I do is based on changing how I look. Because the way I look is the only way other people are going to accept me, which is a wrong perception, right? People are going to love me and accept me based on the way I treat them, based on the way I speak, I think, I live in the world, not just based on my body. So I have to learn to break this pattern by beginning to accept my body the way I am, by beginning to show myself a lot of grace, a lot of space, a lot of acceptance. And find wholeness, find understanding, find beauty in my own meditation, in my own relationship with my body, in my own body awareness, and realizing there is so much peace in different parts of me. What's going on in my left leg? So beautiful, so quiet, so peaceful. What's going on in my right leg? Pay some time to pay attention to it. Instead of constantly talking and describing your body, actually listen to what the body is saying. Make sense? And you will find it is beautiful when you listen to it. So many questions. On YouTube also. How to handle the core beliefs given by mentally struggling mother when being really small in my kindergarten, saying you are bad or evil, and physical abuse that causes feeling of unworthiness and feeling unlovable as you grow up. It's a difficult question because my foundation for truth, my foundation for what is valid, has always been coming from my caregivers. And I have never been able to successfully break the dynamic because I've received from them what is true or false. Then I receive from my friends what is true or false. Then I grow up, I go to a job, I receive from my colleagues what is true or false. Then I operate in society, I receive from society what is true or false. And I had to learn to break this cycle by beginning to follow my own truth, by beginning to follow what is beautiful, what is graceful, what is loving, what is kind, by creating my own definitions of it. How do I create my own definitions? And how do I believe my own definitions? This process takes a while. To believe in yourself, to connect with that internal feeling of safety is going to take time. As we said, I have to heal the whole of me. I have to work with my past, Whole stands for WHOLE. I have to work with my past. I have to heal through habits. The H stands for healing through habits, which is I have to meditate, journal, and many other habits I have to instill in myself. O is ownership and responsibility. I have to start taking ownership for my mental state and stop looking in the rearview mirror. Start looking forwards. Yes, people were responsible for bringing me here, but I am responsible for bringing me out of here. I am responsible for my life in the future. That's O. L stands for letting go of fear and ego. I have to let go of fear and let go of the conflicts my ego creates. And E stands for expressing myself fearlessly. Expressing myself fearlessly is not just through speech, but through my work. Finding something that brings me a lot of joy, doing the things that I am passionate about, pursuing my hobbies. And a sum total of all these things results in inward feeling of safety and wholeness. Okay. The H stands for healing through habits. For somebody who asked on Zoom. So we do all of this work in the membership, of course. And you can join it if you like. But I'll answer some more questions. But that's the whole answer. It is going to take time and it is going to take practice to begin to trust yourself from scratch, to begin to create a totally new identity, which is not based on these terrible old memories. Make sense? Some other questions. Question from Rayquel. I don't know how to say your name. Sorry. What does it mean when we feel confusion when in a conversation with a loved one? It is a blind angle we cannot see, yet we might be wrong, or is it our intuition giving signs of alarm? So, if I understand correctly, confusion can be of many sorts, okay? But usually, when I'm listening carefully to somebody, when I'm paying full attention to someone, not trying to listen to them from a place of fear, from a place of trying to protect myself, from a place of trying to get my point of view outside, but really, really listen by putting my past aside, generally speaking, my intuition becomes active. How that process works, we don't have to discuss right now. But when my conscious mind is fully focused on listening to somebody, all of that which is being said enters my subconscious mind and my intuition awakens. And my intuition tells me if this person is telling the truth or is this person lying. Makes sense? So if your intuition is telling you something is off about somebody, it likely is correct. Only if you're listening from a place of deep silence within. If you're listening from a place of fear or insecurity, then it's just fear or insecurity. And the other person might actually be telling you something good for you. So you have to learn to discern the difference between listening from a place of quietness and listening from a place of fear. As long as you can tell the difference, you'll be able to understand what is intuition and what is fear. When I'm completely silent within me, when I'm listening, whatever comes up is my intuition. But when I'm afraid, when I'm trying to protect myself, when I'm listening, whatever comes up is just my fear. Make sense? Okay. Question in Zoom. How important is it to identify and understand the specific cause of trauma or conditioning? There's another question on conditioning, so it relates to that one. Childhood or otherwise, that might be the primary cause of a state of emotional disturbance. One hears of the story where Buddha said, if you've been wounded by an arrow, don't waste time trying to figure out who shot the arrow, but focus on the healing. Very nice question. Yet, much of psychology, psychotherapy, etc., seems to focus on trying to help us understand the cause. Is it helpful on one's own journey to do so? Good question. How important is it to find out the cause of my trauma and conditioning? The thing is, the answer is both. It is also important to find out the cause and then to let go of the cause. The reason is, if I do not understand the cause at all, then I do not even understand the behavior fully. That's why we look at the causes. For example, I am in a relationship and I am extremely suspicious of my partner. Who are they texting? Who are they talking to? I find it very difficult to trust them. Somebody can come and say, just trust your partner. What have they done? They have done nothing to you. Just trust them. Right? But I can't do it. So because I can't do it, I have to ask the question, why is it happening? Then I realized, oh, it's happening because in my family, when I was growing up, my father was suspicious of my mother, or the other way around, right? And so I grew up watching that, internalizing that, and therefore I feel like suspicion, unless you suspect somebody, you cannot trust them. Or something happened in my previous relationship where I was cheated on, and now I find it difficult to trust somebody. So that's why I have to look at the cause. But there comes a point where I have learned enough about the causes that it changes nothing anymore. I have understood as much as I can understand. Then I come to a point of surrender, which is I realize I cannot stop this behavior. I am completely powerless against it. Then I let go. When I let go of trying to change the behavior, then the shift happens. Then something dramatically different can enter my life. A different way of living can enter my life, where I gain control over my life's events, over my thoughts, over my behaviors through surrendering to them. Which is why when I'm feeling anxious and I can't do anything about my anxiety, I slow down, I surrender, I calm down. And as I calm down, as I surrender, my anxiety also calms down. See? So the answer is both. So it is correct. So Buddha is partly correct. Bottom line. We have to be aware when we do that practice of questioning finding out where my trauma is, where my conditioning is. The reason why they caution against it is because then a lot of us can get trapped in that cycle and feel like blaming is the way to go ahead, which is why I also, at a point, to a certain degree, disagree with modern psychology and modern therapy and most of relationship advice because they teach you to self-victimize. That's why I don't label people as narcissists. I don't label people as abusers. I don't label people as anything. Because the moment I call somebody else a narcissist, I call myself their victim, which is I'm teaching myself to self-victimize. See? So I get trapped in the labels. I get trapped in the victimhood. I get trapped in a place where I have no respite. I have no way out. And so you find people constantly stuck in the cycle of blame, and nothing happens at the end of it. So thank you. So Daxton, there should be 3 dots on your screen. You can raise hand by clicking there. Okay. What other questions do we have? Let's see. Miranta. Sorry. Question from Miranta. How can you find love for yourself when all of your old ways are dying, making you face shadow parts of yourself that you don't like? How can you like yourself again in a healthy way? The parts of you that you don't like, your bad habits, your fears, your old attachments, they are not going to go anywhere just because you dislike them. Might as well show yourself more compassion. Might as well forgive yourself for what happened. Might as well surrender to the way you are. Because when you surrender to the way you are, you begin to merge with what they call the shadow side, which is when I totally stop fighting my tendencies, my addictions, all the things which I hate about myself. I begin to have access to that part of me which I kept rejecting because of conflict. And this part becomes available to me when I stop fighting, when I surrender. When this part becomes available to me, there is an enormous amount of energy that I begin to save. And that energy allows me to move forward. That energy allows me to do the things which are right for me, to make right choices in my life, to make the right decisions, to not only be kind and gentle with myself, but with the people in my life also. The more you love yourself, the more you realize you must take care of yourself as if you were a small child in your care. If you were to come across a small child suddenly who lost its parents in a disaster, and somebody comes to you and says, "Here's a small child, you need to raise this child now," wouldn't you be very concerned with the development of the child? Wouldn't you treat them with gentleness? Wouldn't you be disciplined with them when the time comes? You would. Well, that's exactly what you have to do with yourself. You are that small child, and you have to become your own parent. That is the way you fulfill parts of you which your parents could not. Sense? Well, thanks for being here, everyone. If you want to do this work, please keep attending these webinars, and we'll do all these questions. Constantly keep going over the same concepts over and over again until they begin to stick, until they begin to make sense, right? One more question. So there's a question from Payal. So firstly, Aishwarya's question, how to find self-love while being surrounded by overwhelming emotions? Now that we are on this topic, let's look at this a little bit deeper. I don't believe in self-love. I don't. I don't believe in self-love as a practice, forcefully loving myself, because that tells me that I am rejecting myself first. First, find out why you're rejecting yourself. First, do that work. First, understand various parts of you which you are judging. In the process of doing that, you may, in the end, come to a point where you don't actually actively have to tell yourself, I love myself, I love myself. You don't have to say those things. But you begin to have a relationship with your emotional states. You begin to have a relationship with yourself, which other people, or even you, when you look back at, in hindsight, appears to be self-love. The person who loves themselves don't go around telling themselves that I love myself. They don't. They simply live their lives accordingly, that make it seem that this person, the way they live their life, the way they make choices, the way they speak, the way they act, naturally they have a high amount of self-respect, a high amount of self-love. They did not get there by constantly telling themselves to love themselves. Okay. So this requires meditation. This requires awareness. This requires careful observation. And once you have done all of these things, you come to a conclusion, oh, I have nothing to do here but to accept myself the way I am. And when you accept yourself the way you are, the consequence of that is self-love. But a lot of online teachings are directly going for self-love, directly saying you must love yourself. No, you can't love yourself when you are hating yourself. Say somebody said, we had a question, how do I change the relationship I have with my body? Right? First, understand why you are treating your body the way it is, because you're not listening to it. When you listen to your body, you begin to connect with it. When you pay attention to your breath, your sensations, when you do the bliss meditation, breathing, listening, immersing, seeing, and smelling, the last S, all of these things, you begin to connect with your body. And then in the end, a consequence of that is self-love. It is not a direct approach. It is an indirect approach. Make sense? Why do some people need a lot of reassurance? Because they come from fear and insecurity, and they haven't received enough reassurance as children. And when you don't have enough reassurance anybody gave you as a child, you naturally look for it in adulthood from your partner, usually. So that's why. So yes, Aishwarya, go for it. And even Daxton, whatever your question is, just type it in if you can't raise your hand.
Hi, Amit.
Yes, hi. Aishwarya, go for
So
it.
I have a question on repeating patterns
Mhm.
and core wounds that we have. How can we let go of them?
So repeating patterns and core wounds are two different things. Okay.
Hmm?
Repeating patterns, firstly, you have to develop awareness about what triggers that pattern. Whether the pattern is I say something to somebody, I lose my temper, I get angry, or I become afraid, or I shut down, whatever the pattern is, ask yourself what triggers it. And that question itself will give you a deep insight on what is happening within you. When somebody says something, what is, don't just say, oh, when somebody says something, this happens within me. That's not a full understanding of how a trigger works. You have to deepen your observation, slow down time, and ask yourself, when this person acts this way, what is actually my brain interpreting? And you'll realize when a person acts a certain way, when your partner, whoever, does a certain action, your brain interprets that as saying, this person is going to abandon me. This person is going to reject me. This person does not love me. I'm translating a small action into something massive, something I'm blowing it up in proportion in my mind. And once I blow it up, I react to that. I am not reacting to what is happening in the external world. I'm reacting to my reaction to what is happening in the external world. You see, and that's how a pattern begins. Just becoming aware of that will create a massive difference in the way you operate and create a deeper sense of self understanding.
But once I understand this, say for example, if I get that answer that it's related to me, after that, what I should do?
Okay, if I put a candle in front of you, okay, and somebody and you don't know what a candle is, so you say, oh, there's a beautiful flame. What is this flame? And you try to touch the flame, and it burns your hand, right? Does anyone have to tell you again that fire burns, or you just know?
I just know.
Exactly. So when you understand a certain pattern in your mind, and when you realize, oh, this is the absurdity of it, that I keep putting my hand in fire, which is why I get hurt. I keep misinterpreting something somebody says, which is why I get hurt. Are you going to keep doing it? Or that
No.
insight itself is going to free you, right? So
Yes.
you're right. So that understanding itself will release you from that pattern. So just understand deeper. That's it. There is nothing more to do. Yes, certain practices are, yes, habits are required. But what is a habit? A habit in this consequence would be before I react and before I trouble somebody else and before I blame somebody else for making me feel a certain thing, I have to develop a habit of first inquiring in myself. Is this something is this something I am doing to myself, or did they actually say something which was wrong? And you get better at it, of course, with time. But this is the habit you need. When you have that habit, which means a habit to inquire, when I have a habit to inquire in myself, I have that insight, and suddenly that behavior goes away. And you realize, no, this person had nothing to do with how I felt. And on other occasions, you certainly know, no, this was not me feeling something. This person just said something very rudely. I was in a store yesterday with my son, and this was a packaging store, a UPS store, when you ship a parcel away to somebody. And at this UPS store, my son was standing behind me, and I was paying the shopkeeper, the UPS store person. And my son, standing behind me, began to pop the bubbles. You know how they have bubble wrap in these packaging stores? So he began to pop the bubbles. And the lady right away said, "Don't pop the bubbles, honey. Don't do that." And my son just froze. I could see it. He froze. He got really scared. And I wanted to confront the lady right there, but it would have created a scene. So I made a judgment. I'm going to let it pass. So I paid and I came out. And then I asked my son, and he had tears in his eyes because I knew exactly what happened. So I asked him, "That woman said something to you, didn't she? That's why you're upset." And he said, "Yes, I'm upset because he didn't say anything. He was just frozen. He didn't say anything. He just has tears in his eyes." And then I asked him, "Do you think you did something wrong? Or do you think that woman was rude to you?" And I just let it sink. Just let it sink. Let him listen to it. He didn't say anything. And then I told him, "You didn't do anything wrong. Whatever happened, that woman was rude to you. You understand?" And then he said, "Yes." "Was she rude to you, or do you think you made a mistake?" "She was rude to me," he said. I said, You're correct. She was rude to you. You didn't do anything wrong. You want to go and buy the bubble wrap?" He said, "No, I don't want to." But I told him, "If you want to buy it, we can buy it. But she was rude to you. You did not make a single mistake." So when you think carefully about an experience, you begin to understand what is true from what is false, right? And you can release yourself from these hurts and not carry them forward.
And
Makes sense?
if in case, Amit, it's related to your like past, say for example, you have this FOMO, fear of missing out, and say for example, I'm in new set of friends, and again that trigger is coming,
Yes.
but that trigger is not, um, they're not doing it deliberately, but it's coming from my mind. So in that case, I should love myself. I should be more self-sufficient, right? That I can give love to myself instead of expecting people to love me.
Yes.
Uh,
You feel like your friends are more intelligent or cool or whatever. And just because they don't invite you or they don't ask you to come out with them, there is something missing. You value their judgment or their actions over your own understanding. You are not missing out. They are the ones missing out, hanging out with you.
yeah.
And once you approach it this way,
Hmm.
that I am an intelligent person who cares about others, I'm a good listener, I'm a good friend, and you still don't want to hang out with me, it's your loss. When you come at it from this point of view, you will not feel so desperate or so afraid in their company. And when you don't try to force it, when you don't try to coerce somebody or push somebody to invite you, guess what happens? The opposite. Now they want you to hang out with them. Now they invite you. Now they take you everywhere. So approach it differently and understand that nothing somebody else has is intrinsically of more value than what you have. Your own experience of life, your own hobbies, your own pursuit of what you do in your free time, that has far more value than hanging out with a bunch of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes sense?
It's true. Thank you very much.
So thanks all for being here for so long. We'll do some more questions. But if you want to continue doing this work seriously, and if you've always wondered if you should join the membership, please do join the membership. I'll put a link up in the chats. Thanks, Elaine. If you join today or in the next couple of hours, you'll get a discount also. But the membership mainly is for this reason. We want to continuously do this work by keeping ourselves accountable. Many people on the Zoom right now, and maybe some on YouTube, are members. And we have attended 100 plus of these webinars. I don't know who has been here since the beginning, but we have done a deep dive on one topic 100 times, followed by Q&A. So there's a lot to listen to, a lot to discuss, a lot to interact with, and a lot to share. We have so many people on similar paths, so many people going through difficult life situations, and everyone is welcome. Thanks, Jackson. So let's look at some other questions, but please do join. We would love to have you here. How do I handle my feelings about substances in my relationship when my partner's use makes me anxious and worried? How do I handle my feelings about substance use in my relationship when my partner's use makes me anxious and worried? One of the things to understand is we cannot change other people. We cannot change other people. I'll say it again. People have to come to it by themselves. But having said that, there is a way to communicate to somebody which may perhaps allow them to see the truth of what they are doing clearly. What do I mean by that? My father, my dad, who I think is an incredible man, because of whom I'm here today, without whom I wouldn't be able to do any of this, suffered from addiction to tobacco for 50 years. And there was a point in time where I had, of course, completely surrendered to the way things were. But there was also an intensity to the conversations, intensity to the listening, intensity to the presence. And when my son was 1 year old, just 6 years ago now, I had a conversation with my father. Just one conversation. And things were said. I allowed him to see what is important, what is necessary. And he stopped. He stopped consuming tobacco in one conversation. Or did he? What happened? 2 years passed. And I found that the habit had returned. I had another conversation. And then it stuck. But nowhere now it appears to the outside that, oh, you helped your dad let go of his addiction, or you changed him, or you did this, or you did that. No, I did not. This is what is difficult to understand, that you can inspire change in somebody, but you cannot change somebody. The difference is your intention. What intention do you embody when you have a conversation? When you embody an intention of, I want you to stop doing this, that intention reinforces the existing pattern. Whatever you fight becomes stronger. Obviously, whatever you accept becomes weaker. So I have no intention, and whatever you surrender to finish that becomes a reason for transformation. So I don't have any intention of changing somebody, but I have an intention of being totally present and expressing my truest self. When I do that, change happens on its own. Makes sense? So yes, it is important for you to have a conversation with your partner. And yes, you must spend a lot of time first clarifying your own intention. Because why should he stop using the substance? For you or for themselves? Makes sense? if you have the wrong intention, which is I want to change you, it will reinforce the existing pattern. Somebody's asking on Zoom. So just repeated that. Oh, beautiful question. Question from Aman. Actually, I missed some questions earlier. Let me see. Did I miss any questions? Okay, one question on YouTube. What is the source of comparison? Is it lack of self-acceptance? The source of comparison is conditioning, which is society, especially, I'm assuming Pyle here from India, especially the Indian society, or any society, really, even in the West, puts a heavy emphasis on understanding right from wrong by looking at what other people are doing. So growing up, our parents are always saying, look how she is doing, look how your brother is doing, look how that your sister is doing, look how that your friends are doing. They are doing this, so you must do this. You are falling behind on grades. You are falling behind on this or that. So always comparison as a means to understanding who I am. I don't know who I am unless I compare. Most of us don't know if we are making enough money in our lives unless we also compare with looking at, hey, what are my friends making? See? So comparison is a habit. And I have to break the habit. And the way to break the habit is to understand what something is by looking at that thing. If I ask you a question, if I show you a pencil, I don't have anything here lying around. I show you this remote. This remote. This object. Is this remote long or short? Right? If I ask you this question, how would you answer this question? You would say long or short compared to what? Right? The immediate follow-up question is compared to what? What you should be asking me is, why are you asking me that question? That's an absurd question to begin with. It is what it is. But we don't think in those terms. We always think in terms of, is this good or bad? We never see the thing for what it is. So when you look at yourself as you are, not asking yourself, am I good or bad compared to somebody? Right? This also relates to the previous question of missing out when my friends don't invite me. Make sense? Okay. Let's look at some of the questions. Maybe I missed here one more question. And there's a question about artificial intelligence, which I want to answer after this. There's a question from Janice and Gaurav. Two questions I missed. How to bring joy or satisfaction to my job when my career is not giving me joyfulness? Everybody says, the elders say, you have to work for money. I left my job in May, personally. And now I'm doing this full time, enjoying it. Which reminds me, join the membership if you can. Pays my bills. How to bring joy or satisfaction to my job when my career is not giving me joyfulness? The way to do that is you have to figure out your drifts. And in the membership, we have a drift discovery worksheet, a long set of questionnaire, which will allow you to figure out what your natural inclinations are, what your natural tilt is, what your natural lean is. For example, some people love to talk to people. And so anything that I would recommend them, you look for a job where you have to talk to people, sales, this, that, marketing, whatever. Some people don't love talking to people, they're introverts, etc. And they would rather put on a headset and type away on the computer and work by themselves. Those people, I would say, pick up a job which allows you to do more desk work. So you figure out what it is that your natural inclination is. Do you like a job where you're just told what to do and you execute? Or do you like a job where you have to constantly stretch your mind, use your imagination, and do creative work? Based on that, you either slightly change the job you're doing or shift it, which aligns more with what your drifts are. First, find out what you enjoy. and then make the change. The change is never as scary as it seems. You're afraid of changing things. But once you plunge yourself into it, you will find that change is not that difficult. But do not leave a job in order to start a business. That would be ridiculous. Okay. First, start a business, develop it for a few years, and then leave your job. That would make more sense. Okay. Oh, Janice's question I answered already. Okay. One more question. What is the future of human thinking if AI takes over all of the things that our mind can do? How do humans cope up with this challenge? This is an enormously important question to understand. What is the future of human thinking if AI takes over all of the things that our mind can do? How do humans cope up with this challenge? You see, with the rise of ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, DeepSeek, and all these other developments which are happening in the world, we are entering a strange, strange place. Oh, yes, Dimitri. I'll come to your question. After answering this, I'll go to Dimitri's question. We are coming to a strange, strange place when even the last bastion of human endeavors, which is the human thinking, is now going to be handed over to a machine. What does that make of a human mind? See, machines are going to be conscious. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that we will have artificial general intelligence, AGI, which is an intelligence completely self-sufficient, distinct from human intelligence, which can sustain itself, train itself, teach itself about anything that it wants to learn. Not just writing code, not just creating images, not just creating videos, but absolutely anything. It can teach itself nuclear physics, it can teach itself art, it can teach itself writing, it can teach itself anything. One single entity, which means we are creating God, and that God is going to be unleashed upon the world. And if that happens, I personally don't see how humanity survives. It's a grim future. So where does that leave us? Where does that leave us? In a really difficult position, because what is going to happen is gradually human beings are going to give more and more and more control to these artificial machines. Companies, the tech industry is going to do massive layoffs starting this year. If you are in computer science, if you write code, good luck. Sorry. Many other professions are also on the chopping block because profits are what people pursue, what capitalistic system pursues. And as they pursue profits, they're going to automate more and more and more. And gradually, they're going to hand over the control to these systems. Not only are our jobs be taken away, but our human relationships are also going to be taken away, because pretty soon we will have humaniform robots, which means robots look like human beings, will be the ones people are dating, will be the ones people will be having conversations with. And with these things, you will have no problems whatsoever. Human relationships, I have always said, are not a source of your happiness and joy, or a source of your self-understanding, which means when I look at another human being, when I talk to them, I learn about myself through the conflict I have with this person. But with a robot, you will have no conflicts. You will essentially have a slave in some form, an object you can use for your pleasures, however you please. It's a disturbing, disturbing, dystopian future we are looking at with the rise of artificial intelligence. So where does that leave us? That leaves us in a difficult position, which we have to make a choice, we have to make a stand, and not give out, not surrender certain things to the machines and do them because we find joy in them. A question earlier from Gaurav saying, my job is not giving me satisfaction. What do? You do what you love to do, right? You have to learn to do and pursue what you love to do. This is what we are all going to have to face at some point. Not as much as our generation, but future generations. Which is, you have a universal basic income, government pays you enough money to survive. On top of it, anything that you have to do, you must do because you love it. And the positive side of it is, if everything survives, if these robots don't destroy the planet, then it would leave us in a position where we have to figure out what we love to do and do just that. So if you haven't started doing it already, figuring out your drift, please, please, please do it. I urge you desperately. That is the source of meaning of self-worth in your lives. Your meaning is not going to come from doing what society, what your parents want you to do. It's not going to come from your jobs. It's not going to come from just being a mechanical person from 9 to 5, fulfilling your duties and responsibilities, earning a high-paying job. It's not going to come from those things. It's not going to come from inheritance and money. It's not. It's going to come from doing what brings you serious joy. Do that which brings you serious joy, serious happiness. Joy has to be serious, okay? When we say joy, we feel like, oh, joy is casual. No, casual joy you will find anywhere. But do things which are difficult. Learning a guitar, learning an instrument, it's difficult. The fingers don't bend, right? It's hard. Learning martial arts is difficult. Doing yoga is difficult. But once you do it, you will experience complete self-forgetfulness and therefore self-fulfillment. When you forget yourself in something that you love, you start creating self-worth. You start creating meaning for yourself. You start experiencing true love and joy in life. So please, start walking this path. This is an extremely important part of healing. I never work with anybody and tell them, oh, just therapy, just all of these ideas, concepts, meditation is going to get you there. No, it's not. You have to do something that you love. This is not optional. You must, at least in my worldview. Because when you operate in a field, when I'm taking lessons to learn the piano or taking lessons to learn how to sing, my brain goes in a place where I leave behind my hurts, where I leave behind my story, where I leave behind my traumas. And the less my mind goes there, those pathways begin to heal. Like a path in the woods gets covered up by bushes and trees. If you don't walk over it, if no animal or no man enters it, the forest comes and reclaims it. Similarly, if the parts of your mind, traumatic memories, habits, patterns, addictions, the less you visit them, the more the mind will come over and take it for itself. It will heal. That's called healing. The forest, just as a forest becomes green again, your mind will become whole again. Make sense? If you spend a lot of time in serious joy, the only downside is you're going to have a lot of good time. That's the only downside. The upside is infinite. The upside is you make a career out of it. You make a lot of money doing it. But the downside is you end up with serious joy. Make sense? You end up with a lot of happiness, enthusiasm for life, you're spreading passion, joy, and you change the world too. That's what happens. When you do something that you love, you end up changing the world because you're doing something that the universe wants you to do. Makes sense? So this is what we do in the membership. Again, all of this, not just examining your traumas, not just examining your conditioning, not just deep diving into those things, but also leaving them alone for a while so that you can heal in different ways. Both are important. examining your past and totally leaving it aside, putting it aside, and going away. Makes sense? Thanks, Elaine. Elaine is moderating our chat. She does a great job. Dimitri, go for it. Sorry, I've been making you wait for a while.
There's no problem at all. Very good to see you.
How are you, my brother? You too?
Yeah, first of all, I want to tell you that I'm back. My energy is back, and I'm back to my own skin.
Yes.
Because, as you know from our one-to-ones from recent weeks, I've had quite a rough patch over a few months because I got burnt out for objective reasons. But now, the past week was, you know, I'm just feeling that I'm myself again, and I'm really grateful for this letter of light in the dark and breathing and all the things that you recommended.
So by the way, just before you continue, light in the, what Dimitri mentioned, light in the dark is another method we use to really talk to yourself. And yes, if you want to know more details, they'll come later. But that's what he referred to. It's a technique, a method called the light in the dark, where you write a letter to yourself. So go on. Sorry, Dimitri.
Yeah, so it helped immensely, and I wanted to put you in the spotlight, if you don't mind. So I've joined this community firstly because of your attitude and approach to life, that you want to feel confident and you want to feel fearless every single day, every single moment, which I really I'm looking forward to, because what's the point of not having such a life? So my question is, you yourself, do you ever have in your year any months where you feel really low energy and you are done and you need, you know, to withdraw from everything and recharge, or now you're in the state where you are really, you know, invincible and fearless every single day?
Nobody is invincible, but certainly I have had those patches where I've had to withdraw. But my general, personally speaking, my tendency, a certain proclivity, I should say, has always been to confront the problem. So as Albert Camus said, in the heart of winter, I found within me that there was an invincible summer. So I consider my attitude to be that, not attitude, but I don't know, it's just something very innate to me, which is when life goes sideways. And I had a very difficult time this year, actually, last year, at this time last year. We did a webinar on that day, on February 11th. I received some very painful news. And the moment I received the news, in 10 minutes, I had to do one of these webinars. I had to talk to you guys. And I went ahead and did the webinar. And I said that I'm not feeling good. So I did not escape. I did not want to run. I said, no matter what happens, yes, it'll be embarrassing. Maybe I'll cry. Maybe I'll break down in front of people. Maybe I'll shut down. I'm okay with it. There is an internal state of surrender to acceptance to whatever happens. I don't mind whatever happens. But I'll keep moving forward. And so when these things happen in my life, and there will be many such incidents, because nobody can avoid suffering, but we can learn how to suffer, can go deeper into suffering. So I always turn towards suffering. When I'm not feeling good, I turn towards it, which means when negative things happen in my life, my meditations become longer. So when I withdraw from things, it basically means I'm going to go really deep into what I'm doing. So the light in the dark, the letter, was born actually this time last year, when I discovered this way of talking to myself, and I wrote myself a letter because things were so difficult. There was no way I would have walked out of it without totally messing up my life. And just the way things happen, things are better than ever before. Everything turned around and things are amazing. But I credit that also to that letter. And unfortunately, fortunately, I was able to have it in the form that I have right now. And fortunately, I haven't had to write it again to myself. But when these difficult times come, you just turn towards the suffering and you go through it. You soften up instead of becoming tough and hard. And you say, I will go through the storm like a blade of grass, not like the oak tree. Because when a dark storm gathers, the oak is uprooted, but the grass endures. So I want to be that blade of grass. I want to
That's
go
beautiful.
with life. Thanks, Dimitri. But yeah,
Thanks for what you're doing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hope to see you soon.
You too. Any other questions? So Snowline is asking, how would joining the membership help me freeing the self? How would joining the membership tomorrow help me freeing the self from trauma patterns and feelings? Like, what exactly is my part that I can do? Is it about access to wisdom? Then I can study on specific guides. So there are specific guides, specific worksheets, and you will have to watch the courses. You can watch the courses. And basically, the membership is this. Imagine somebody hands you a keychain to a large mansion which has 100 different rooms and says, you have to live in this mansion forever. Every night you live in this mansion, you turn the lights off, you're alone. You'd be terrified, wouldn't you? I don't want to live in this dark place with 100 closed rooms. I don't know what these rooms might have. Are there ghosts in there? Are there demons in there? Are there dead bodies in there? I don't know what's in there. But what if somebody says, okay, in the 10 rooms first, we are going to install lights, we're going to clean out the garbage, we're going to throw out everything else, and we are going to install cameras and everything, sensors, so you know exactly what's happening in these 10 rooms. The next day, 10 more rooms, the next day, 10 more rooms. And pretty soon, what happens is this entire mansion, which was a dark place for you, begins to become illuminated, such that there are no dark corners of your mansion that are hidden from you. This place is actually your own mind, right? This place is your own mind, where there is both beauty and terror, based on that quote from Rilke. Yes. This place is what is both scares you and is what makes your life beautiful. But if you are not aware of what's going on in your mind, then you keep suffering. So the membership is essentially fulfilling only one purpose, bringing you inward clarity. That's it. It is there to just show you what's in you. That's it. Everything after that happens on its own. It doesn't try to mold you or give you too many principles, concepts. Yes, there will be some concepts, but you will be encouraged to question them, not encouraged to accept them as they are. Doubt them, really. I love doubt. I want you to ask the hardest questions you can ask, because I learned something from them, if you're able to highlight a contradiction somewhere. But that's the entire purpose of the membership, just illumination. That's all. Do you think, there's a question from Padmanav, Do you think that sometimes the purpose of spiritual growth is to help you achieve materialistic success? Or spiritual growth happens solely for its own sake? Beautiful question. The purpose of spiritual growth is to become who you are. Simple. Because that's the hardest thing in life to do. The hardest thing in life to become unapologetically who you already are. Because we are so covered up with conditioning, so covered up with ideas and influences and this and that. Spiritual growth is to know who you are and become that person. And when you become that person, naturally, what's going to happen is you're going to reject outside ideas and you're going to say, oh, no, this is what I want to do in this world. As a consequence of doing what you want to do in this world, one person with spiritual growth is going to become a musician. The other person is going to become a politician. The other person is going to become a monk. And the third person is going to become a coach. And the fourth person or fifth person is going to become a yoga teacher. And somebody else is going to become a leader. Somebody else is going to become a climate activist. Somebody else is going to fight for rights of the disenfranchised. So everybody is going to do what they are supposed to be doing. And in doing so, the world heals. The goal of spirituality is never gathering concepts and becoming a spiritual teacher. It is becoming who you are meant to be. Make sense? Okay. More questions? Hi, Amit, how are you? I have a question. You know what you want to desperately achieve a goal. Somehow you feel laid back to initiate action. Why is that? And how do you overcome this? Lethargy or lack of interest, or what is it called? What's the word I'm looking for? Delaying everything. What is it called? No, what doesn't come to me? Postponing things. All of this happens because we lack clarity about our goals. We want to achieve our goal, but we don't know how it looks once we have achieved it. Procrastination. Oh yeah, thank you. So many people telling me. I was blanking out on that word. The reason why we procrastinate is because we lack clarity about the way our goal is supposed to look finished. And most of us love chasing goals, which I don't particularly believe in. You're supposed to chase a goal, yes, but a goal should be an outcome of something. A goal should be an outcome of a vision. What is the vision that you're chasing? For example, I'll give you a small metaphor. If I were to write a book as an author, my goal can be to sell 1,000 copies or to get 1,000 5-star reviews. That's a goal. Most people chase goals because of which they get afraid, because of which they procrastinate. The goal inherently isn't inspiring. Why? Because the goal is extrinsic. The goal is I'm selling the books so that I can make money. It's a materialistic endeavor. That doesn't inspire the spirit. The spirit loves intrinsic approaches. It loves what is true for itself. So I have to create a vision. A vision is, in this context, I'm holding a book in my hands and the book feels incredible. It feels amazing to have written this. I want to become that person who has written this. So I have no longer any interest in how other people rate it or what other people pay for it or how much money I get. The other way to create a vision, if, for example, that there can be an extrinsic element to it. For example, you could say, this is a journey the reader goes through when they read my book. This is a journey a listener goes through when they listen to my music. And then if you have a business or an endeavor or a so-called goal, which requires interacting with other people, right? So I have to create a vision surrounding it. A vision is intrinsic. How do I feel having done this? How do I feel to run such and such business? How do I feel to be such and such a person? That is what I aspire to be. And that becomes a very intrinsic affair. That you don't do it to please others. You don't do it for, and then even if you experience failure, challenges, you keep going. because the vision is beautiful. The vision becomes inspiration, spontaneous inspiration, endless spontaneous inspiration. Makes sense? So don't chase goals, chase a vision. A vision will be your own, and a vision will make you passionate. Okay. Any other questions? There's a question in Zoom, but I'm not sure I understand it. So Shoaib, you will have to clarify the question a little bit more. I prayed for growth, but instead I'm facing setbacks and hardships in my life. What kind of setbacks and hardships? I'm struggling to understand how to navigate this challenge. I'd like to explain that a little bit more. So if you want to follow that up with something, Shoaib, sorry, I was reading something. I blanked out of there for a second. I was reading a message I received from somebody, but it's a direct message, so I won't reveal what it says. Any other questions you guys have? What started my spiritual journey? What started your spiritual journey? I happen to be intensely attached to another person many years ago and believed incorrectly, of course, that this person would be my future partner, etc., etc. And then there was infidelity in the relationship, which destroyed my ego. I'm so glad it did. So glad it did. So that's what began the process. Because I didn't understand who I was. I went into depression. I had a health crisis. I ended up in the hospital. My body didn't want to. And I lost a lot of weight. And then I began to undertake serious meditation and self-inquiry. So I started listening to many spiritual teachers, started reading many books. Eckhart Tolle, Alan Watts, Siddha Krishnamurti, James Allen, so many of them. Bertrand Russell, Viktor Frankl, some names. And then as I began to internalize, I began to realize, of course, the Buddha's teachings also, Tao Te Ching and all of those things. I began to realize that no one person has all the answers, including myself. And I also got into a place where I got attached to the teachings themselves. I had a spiritual identity for a few years, which of course then I had to discard. And then I began to question all the teachings I had from all these people and began to see flaws and mistakes and errors in logic in many of their teachings. But then I realized, I have some thoughts of my own. And here we are. I don't know if that summarizes. But that's my journey. Okay. One last question, and then we'll end. Why do I feel the need to outcompete others? The reason is competing with others, comparing with others comes from conforming to society. We feel like I'm competing in order to rise above them, but rising above somebody is a conditioned conformative pattern. Everybody's trying to rise above everybody else. Everybody's ambitious. The problem with the world is everyone wants to stand apart. And in trying to do so, they are all standing in the same place. They're all part of a crowd. Right? If you want to truly break away from all of this, you have to ask yourself why you are doing something. What is the reason? What is your vision behind it? And when you identify, isolate, distill, clarify, create your vision surrounding something, you'll begin to do it forcefully. You'll begin to do it in spite of opposition. You'll begin to do it passionately. And then others will not matter, in the sense that their opinions about what you do will not matter. Other people, of course, matter a lot because we love them and we have compassion towards others. But in terms of judging myself, creating a place for myself based on where other people are and putting them behind me, I no longer engage in such egoic activities. I do it because I want to do it, and there is no ego in that. Makes sense? So please do join the membership if you have always thought of doing so, because we love doing this work. This is my passion, and I hope that through this work, some of you, come across your own passions. And the goal of the membership is not to be a member endlessly. The goal is to learn everything that you can learn and eventually graduate and move on. And I received a message from somebody the other day who has been a member for 3 years, I think 4 years, since it started. I don't feel connected to the membership anymore. I've learned everything that I have to learn. I said, great, it's time for you to move on. Congratulations. But that's the goal. The goal is not to make you dependent on me or anybody else. Of course, not me, but anybody else. The goal for you is to find that the power that you're looking for resides within you, and you do not need to depend on anybody else. Makes sense? The question is a question I've received in direct messages. I keep facing setback after setback, despite doing everything right. Sometimes I question myself, as a life is trying to teach me something. Of course, life is trying to teach you something. And if the setbacks keep repeating, that just means you're not understanding what life is actually telling you. So you must look deeper. You must examine your fears. Examine why you are coming to the same decisions that you have been making. But there is such a thing as luck also. But beyond a point, when I understand there is such a thing as luck, I can begin to decrease its influence in my life. And I say, I don't care how many times I fail, I'm going to keep trying. And at that point, luck ceases to be a factor, or begins to become lesser and lesser and lesser a factor every day. Okay. So I truly enjoyed being here. Thank you all for sticking through. Most people have been listening for a long time, I guess. Almost an hour and a half. Yeah, more than an hour and a half, I think. Almost 2 hours at this point. So we will end this here unless somebody else has any questions. But I want to answer the questions you have. Any more questions? Doesn't seem like it. Please do let me know if I missed any. Thank you, Mark. Thanks all for being here. I think the recording will be up on YouTube. It's going to save it, hopefully. Thanks, Rita, Shorya. Thanks all for joining. As always, if you have anything else, send me an email. And talk to you guys soon. Talk to you all soon. Please do attend these webinars. Even if you don't mind join the membership, that's great. Please do attend the webinars and let's have these discussions more often. Take care, everyone. I'll see you next week. I appreciate all of you too on Zoom. Bye, everyone. Take care.